Hey everyone, this is Max. Just a heads up before we start today's episode. We recorded episodes 1 and 2 together about a week ago, and since then a couple of things have happened that we will seem entirely ignorant of when you listen. The first is Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s younger brother, deciding to remove himself from the NBA draft and return to school at Missouri. We actually discuss Jonte Porter at length, specifically focusing on his weight issues. So keep in mind when you're listening to that we did not know he would not be in the NBA draft. The second thing is the Brian Colangelo burner account news. You'll hear David bemoan Brian Colangelo's performance as the Philadelphia Sixers GM. In fact, he specifically wonders whether Brian Colangelo will screw up massively at some point. Don't think he had any idea it would be so soon, but he'll seem pretty prescient when you listen to that part of the episode. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the show.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine.
Here's Perry, to Gar-Hurd. Here's the jump shot.
Comes to Marley, a long three. He got him! He got him! Into Booker. Here's the three. Suzanne! Oliver, Sir Charles, and he flies in for a wham, bam, slam. Whammo time! He got it! Suzanne! Oh, brother!
Hello and welcome, everybody, to the 7 Seconds or Less podcast. This is a podcast about both the NBA generally and the Phoenix Suns specifically. My name is Max McCauley. If you're listening to this, you may already know me as MaxMCC11 on Twitter. I'm joined by my co-host, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. You may know him already as the 4-Point Play. It's David Nash. How you doing, David?
I'm good, thanks, Max. How are you?
I am excellent. I'm excited to talk about 9 through 16 of the NBA draft.
Yeah, and quick shout out to anyone that listened to us fumble through that first one and have come back for the second pod. Really
we do appreciate that. Yeah, maybe a little rocky at the start, but I think we smoothed out as we went on.
It's going to be a journey. Join us.
Yeah, we're amateurs, but we're gonna get better at this. That's our promise to you. Real quick before we get going with the show, quick mission statement. You can listen to the full one in the first episode, but this is going to be a podcast both about the NBA generally and the Suns specifically. We're both giant NBA nerds, I think it's fair to say. Obsessives, maybe. So we'll talk about the NBA generally, but also we're both Suns fans, so we're going to focus on the Phoenix Suns. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be a 9 through 16 draft. So we're going to go through from New York at 9 through the Phoenix Suns at 16. Before we get started, though, I'm going to turn over to David for his weekly segment, Did You Know?
Yeah, so last week we had Neil Walk. So keeping that theme with the number 2 pick last week, because we've never had a 1. I've gone back and Max, did you know we've only had 1 pick 16 in Suns history?
I did not know.
Any chance at all that you may be able to name who that is?
Oh, God. Can you give me like a decade?
I can. I can even tell you he was picked in the 1975 draft.
All right, well, then I'm lost. Who is it?
It's a gentleman by the name of Ricky Sobers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll, I'll get on. He's had some, famous Suns time. So, he was a pick 16 in the 75 draft, as I said. 6'3", 198 pounds from the Bronx, went to UNLV. A bit of a combo guard, which I'm sure wasn't a term back then. But
you see, that's what I like is when NBA teams used to take guys from the Bronx. Now we're considering European guys number 1. What the hell happened to us?
I don't know. We lost the battle. So, Ricky, he played a couple of seasons with the Suns, but probably most famously, he went off in Game 5 of the 1976 Finals, or also known as the greatest game ever played, Boston versus Phoenix. Ricky played 25 minutes. He went 11 of 22 and had 3 from deep and 6 assists.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, he went ham.
Yeah. All right, Ricky. Well, I hope our number 16 pick this year will have a moment like that.
Yeah, you never know. So hopefully our number 16 pick this year plays more than 2 seasons.
Yeah, that would be good.
What Ricky did with Phoenix before going off to Indiana, Chicago, Washington, and Seattle. So, last thing on Ricky, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole here, Max, and in September 6th, 1977, you'll have to follow me here.
Okay.
The Suns and the Pacers kind of went on a little bit of a journey together. So 77, Ricky was traded by the Suns to the Pacers for a guy named Don Buse.
Okay.
3 years later, in November 25, 1980, the Suns traded Don Buse back to the Indiana Pacers for a 1981 second-round draft pick and
They
a
just missed him so much.
1982 second-round draft pick. That 1982 second-round draft pick became a gentleman by the name of Jose Slaughter.
Ooh, that's a cool name.
That is, and he suited up to the Suns for a little bit, but you guessed it, June 8, 1981, Jose was traded by the Phoenix Suns to none other than the Indiana Pacers.
Wow.
For a gentleman by the name of Dudley Bradley.
You know, that kind of just makes me think that the GMs of those two teams, Suns and the Pacers, were just like drinking buddies and would just stay up late drinking and like make stupid trades.
Yeah, and those last 2 trades, I think something might have been going on there because Phoenix also relinquished the option to swap first-round draft picks in that second trade. So I'm not sure if there was some discussions around that first trade and then maybe doing a follow-up trade less than 6 months later by the looks of things. So
that's incredibly fishy.
Maybe some dodgy things back in the 80s. So Dudley ended up playing 1 season for Phoenix before signing with Chicago as a free agent, just to round out that story. So that's our Did You Know for this week.
I definitely did not know that or any of that.
I hope to keep stumping you.
Yeah, I like learning new things. Okay, without further ado, let's go on to 9 through 16 of the draft. Last time I started with number 1, you finished with number 8, so I will go ahead and start up with number 9 right now. Number 9 belongs to.
I'm gonna get 16.
Yeah, you get 16, but I'm gonna cheat and throw out some 16 too because we all care about this. We all care about the Suns. Okay, so number 9, New York. I think they're kind of devastated Trae Young's not here. That'd be my favorite pick for them. I love the fit with Ntilikina and Porzingis, but that's not an option. So I think I'm gonna. It's decisions between the two Bridges. Bridges is how do you say the plural Bridges? Bridges is.
Let's go with Bridges just because it sounds hilarious.
It does. I think they would probably take Mikal Bridges. He seems to have a higher profile among the NBA teams, but I would rather have Miles for them. So I'm going to go with Miles Bridges. Has a little more offensive creation upside than Mikal does, I think, and that's something that they kind of need out of the wing. Unless you really, really love Tim Hardaway Jr., which I think he's fine, but he's overpaid, obviously.
Because they loved him. Because they loved him a lot.
Yeah, apparently. I love Miles' fit. I think Miles can play next to Porzingis, small ball forward. Porzingis at the 5. I think that sounds awesome to me. It'd be a lot of fun to watch. It fits fine with Ntilikina. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think you're right. I think they'd be devastated that Young's not there, if that's the case come draft night. And yeah, I agree. They're probably choosing between what will now be known as the two Bridges.
The two Bridges. Just real quick, touching on his fit with Phoenix. Again, I think his best fit's probably power forward, so that's a little questionable with Bender or Chris. But he's only like, what is he, 6'6"? I think he measured at the combine. So I think he could probably play in a lot of wing positions. So I think the fit would be fine.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool. All right, let's do number 10. You're on the clock. You're Philadelphia. This is an interesting one.
It's really interesting. They could go a few ways with this. There's obviously the other bridge.
The other bridge.
The other bridge. It's pretty tough for me to go past Smith here, and I think it's going to be pretty tough for Philly to do the same. I'm actually fascinated with what Philly are going to do with JJ Redick this offseason, just as a little aside.
He really wants to be back there, it seems like. I think they're going to figure something out.
Yeah, you'd think they'll be able to figure something out. Obviously, they paid him a large whack of money this season, but the way that bird rights works, and if they do want to chase a big fish, it's kind of going to be tough for them. But
Yep.
he said he essentially had his the most fun this season with that team. So let's hope he can get back there. But I'm going to go Smith, I believe, for Philly at 10. I think probably what we saw in the playoffs against Boston, Philly could really do with another wing. I think I'm certainly not moving away from Ben Simmons playing point guard. And as disappointing as Embiid was towards the end of the year, there's kind of no doubting what he is as a prospect. So you've kind of got your 1 and your 5 there. Jury's out on Rocco. I'm sure they'd want to move him for a more offensively minded small forward, power forward at some stage.
Interesting. So you think that, huh? I think they like him a lot.
I think they like him a lot, but I think these things are, in this day and age with the NBA, does the love dry up a little bit now that he's earning a hell of a lot more money?
He also,
previously.
Sorry, Sixers fans, but he kind of shat the bed in the playoffs a little bit.
He did, and that stuff matters. That's where you start to really get judged by internal front offices and things. So, but yeah, that aside, I think Smith fits. I think he's got an incredible amount of upside. Like we spoke about on the last pod, he's probably destined to be the biggest riser, and has probably already risen to the point where he can't go much further inside that top 10. But who knows? There might be someone, even around 5 or 6 that will look at him. But if he's there at 10, I think the Sixers take him.
I totally agree. It would have been my pick with the Sixers number 10 pick as well. I love the kid. He's incredible. If you haven't watched him, even if you don't want to spend time scouting him or anything, just go watch his YouTube highlights at the very least. The guy is awesome. He explodes off the screen. He's
probably the most fun to watch in terms of just pulling up some highlights from the college season.
A little bit of a disappointing combine. I think he was 6'2" without shoes, 6'4" in shoes, which is shorter than I think a lot of people thought he was.
Yeah, not great.
Not great. I heard a lot of people talking about him playing small ball power forward in the NBA. I don't know if I see that if he's 6'4" in shoes.
No. Even though Charles Barkley did it.
Charles Barkley did it. Charles Barkley's a bit of a phenomenon. Zaire Smith, I think he's going to be excellent. He's going to be a wing 3-and-D guy. I'm higher on his shot than a lot of people are. The release isn't perfect, but it goes in. I like it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
What else about Zaire? His offensive rebounding is underrated. That guy is just tenacious on the boards. I recommend watching him play. He's so much fun.
Yeah, and outside of that, disappointing height measurement, which he can't really help. He had a pretty good combine in the other.
That's true. Yeah, he looks good shooting the ball.
He, from what I saw, obviously was top 5 in standing vertical leap and max vertical leap as well.
Shocker! I can't believe that after watching his tape.
And I believe he was. Some of these tests are kind of hard to, really break down. But I'm pretty sure he was top 2 or 3 in the 3/4 sprint. So he's got some serious speed behind him as well. So it's a pretty lethal combination, and I just think as athletic as Philly already are, they can probably showed, particularly up against Boston and that kind of wall of wings that they throw at you. They could really do with someone like Zaire.
Yep, he's really, really young. I think he's one of the youngest prospects in the draft. He was not expected to come out this year. He was expected to be a 2019 guy. But he was just so much better in college. People thought he was going to be. He had to come out now. Real quickly, let's talk about his fit in the Suns. Love it. Give it to me, please.
Yeah.
Either whether they take Doncic or Ayton at number 1, I would love him with both. Oh my God, could you imagine if Doncic and Zaire Smith are on the team?
Oh God.
That would be. I might pass out in draft night if that happens.
He's. I mean, we might touch on this at another point, but he's like the ultimate trade up kind of option for Phoenix. I think at getting
just a teaser for the 7 seconds or less segment that might be touched on. One more point I wanted to make about Philly, about what they'll actually do. I agree with you. I think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Zaire are very much in play. The thing that scares the hell out of me is if Brian Colangelo panics and takes Colin Sexton. He's worried about faults. That would just be a horrible fit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna. I'm not a Colangelo fan, and I'm just waiting for him to stuff this up.
Yeah, so was every Philadelphia fan that I've seen. They're all terrified of what Brian Colangelo's gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So it's my turn. I'm Charlotte at 11. Oh man, Charlotte's one of those. It's so depressing, isn't it?
It is.
I think what they're gonna do is blow it up. They brought in a new GM. They're gonna have a new coach. I think they're gonna trade Kemba. Potentially to Phoenix if we take Ayton. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Maybe even if we take Doncic. What do you think about that as an aside? If they get Doncic and still trade for Kemba?
That's interesting. That's very interesting because I haven't thought about this so much lately, but certainly early on in my Doncic love affair, as some people might say, I really saw him as a sixth man to start with. So. Yeah, I could see it, particularly if, Phoenix is trying to, toe that line of, really pushing for the playoffs whilst, keeping the timeline chugging along underneath, so to speak.
And offensively, I mean, a small ball lineup with Kemba, Booker, Jackson, and Doncic, and whoever at the 5 is, that's fun.
Yeah, and that's why I've toyed with Doncic as the sixth man because, generally if your six man's really good, he's finishing the game anyway, and
exactly he
might get to do what he wants to a little bit more if he starts the game, with a unit built solely around him.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Okay, but turning back to Charlotte, I think what they're gonna do is take Colin Sexton. If I had to guess, I wouldn't do that though. I would take a point guard, but it would be a different one. I think I would take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Kentucky. Super tall, athletic point guard, 6'6", a big old wingspan, crazy upside. He's an athlete. He's skinny as hell. I think I saw he was only like 5 or 6 pounds heavier than Trae Young, and he's like obviously 4 inches taller than him. So that's a little scary.
It is a little scary. Yeah, he had like a crazy, body fat measurement at the combine as well.
It was like he had like 3% or something like that, right?
3%. Yep, 3%.
Yeah, that dude needs to get in the weight room. But the upside is tremendous. I could see Charlotte trying to build around a new perimeter, primary initiator. That's the pick I would make. What do you think?
I think that's a good pick. I think you broke it down perfectly. I think I could see someone like MJ leaning on his new GM to take a guy like Colin Sexton, particularly if they are going to get rid of Kemba. But
couldn't you just see Michael Jordan falling in love with Colin Sexton's personality too?
Oh, 100%. That 4-on-5 game or 3-on-5 game or whatever.
Against
Minnesota. That just seems like
fun.
An MJ game if ever I've seen one. Like
totally.
Just loving the fact that and I loved it too, but I didn't really love the rest of Colin Sexton's season. And again, I'm willing to put my hand up and say that. I've probably been a little bit harsh on Colin Sexton because of the fact that we are out the other side of the Bledsoe experience, and
right,
I see a lot of the same in a guy that's not really a traditional point guard that you kind of hope that will turn into one, and then you're 7 years into his career and he still hasn't turned into one, and that's kind of what I see in Sexton, which may be unfair, but just calling it how I see it.
Yep, I actually made the Bledsoe comparison before. It's not perfect, but I do think it's apt and pretty concerning. Just real quick, touching on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's fit in Phoenix. It's good. I think he projects to play. He'll be really nice next to Booker because he's long, athletic, can defend potentially.
Yep.
The shooting's a bit of a question mark.
It is.
I wouldn't say he can't shoot, but it's not a safe bet that he's going to be able to shoot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit in maybe around 16 and then probably on our next episode as well. But, you're really looking for a very specific player to play next to Booker. SGA, as I like to call him, is definitely in the conversation. But, he doesn't tick all the boxes. But, as I'll probably get to later, there's actually not many guys that do tick all the boxes that you're looking for. So, I'd definitely be interested in a guy like SGA, particularly if he was there at 16 for Phoenix.
Yep, same here. Okay, I think that's enough on that. Let's move to the Clippers at 12. Who you got?
Yeah, so we're in an interesting position here. I feel like we can kind of work together a little bit. Clippers have got back-to-back picks. There has been some rumors and reports that they may try and package both of those together to really move up, which I think would actually be a really smart move because, the Clippers, they have some nice pieces already, and, it really does feel like a kind of top 8 draft to me just before the Bridges is. That could be something that they look to do, but if they are looking to draft back-to-back and you kind of look at their young pieces or lack of, and then look at kind of who's on the board, it's pretty interesting. Do they go big small? Do they go small? Do they go small big? Not really sure. You could see them looking at a guy like Sexton potentially. What are your thoughts? What would you be doing at this position?
So, like you said a little earlier, the Clippers have some nice pieces, but I don't really see anybody on that roster as someone that you build around long term. So they're really kind of wide open in my view. I think I would lean towards a big and a small, like you said. But I mean, the issue is that I think there's some intriguing wings in this class. But I don't know if there's any. Well, actually, Mikal Bridges is on the board, isn't he? We have one of the Bridges.
Yeah, I was just trying to kind of look back at I actually haven't been, noting down our picks as we've been going. But yeah, he is definitely there.
Okay. So I'll turn it back to you, but I think that would be in consideration for me.
Yeah, I think you've pointed me in the right direction there, to be perfectly honest. Pretty hard for them to pass up on him, but that'll certainly make your next pick a little more interesting, I suppose. I'm not going to touch on Mikal too much purely because, you kind of looked at both the Bridges before for the New York pick. But yeah, I think you make a good point. There's, extending on what I was saying early on, there's not a hell of a lot in terms of youth on the Clippers roster that you kind of make decisions around. So let's go Bridges. And then you're on the clock with a pretty difficult decision, I think, to back that up.
Yeah. Someone stands out to me pretty clearly.
Okay.
I don't think this is who they would take. And also, by the time you're all listening to this, he may not even be in the draft anymore. But I would take Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of upside there. He's a really, really skilled big, can shoot, can pass. He's fat, which is a problem. The kid he's got baby fat on him. I think he's going to get in the gym. And there's actually some untapped upside there, I think, because of his current fatness. And yeah, I just love the guy's skill. I think he's got a lot of upside, and I think if the Clippers can come away with Mikal Bridges and Jonte Porter, they'd be pumped.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's hard, I've been trying to track, Jerry West's influence over this team. I definitely think that he had influence on the Blake Griffin trade for sure. And I'm sure he's sitting back earning a pretty healthy paycheck off the Clippers, but it's hard to see what his, I guess, thoughts would be around, starting to build this team again. But, taking a guy like Porter might be a good decision and definitely a good decision after taking Bridges the pick before. So, yeah, I think the Clippers would be happy walking away, with those two guys at 11 and 12 from their draft.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Real quickly, let's talk about those two guys fit with the Suns. Mikal Bridges, I would love his fit. 3-and-D. Just give me more 3-and-D, please. This team desperately needs it.
Yep.
And then Jonte, would love that as well. We obviously need a center. He's a high IQ guy. He's a little questionable to protect the rim. He's subject to a lot of the same concerns about defending on the perimeter, but you're not investing a number one pick in him. You're investing a later pick in him, and I think he especially as a small ball or backup five, he has a lot of appeal for the Suns.
You just quickly you touched on it a little bit before, and as you said, it might be a little bit outdated by the time this pod comes out. But what's your gut feel on him staying in the draft?
It's so hard. I think I would say if I were him, but the reports are that he's leaning towards not staying. I think teams were really disappointed with his conditioning at the combine. I think he got a lot of negative feedback, so my guess is that he doesn't stay in the draft, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think if you look at the strength of the next year's class, I think that's gonna, in some of these decisions about whether guys stay or not, might certainly factor in.
Totally. I made this point actually. I was talking with Rich and Kellen Olson on Twitter, and given how weak the next class is, like if Jonte Porter just gets into kick-ass shape and comes into college and just down from 13% body fat to 8 and just is awesome, I could see him totally being a borderline top 5 pick.
Yeah, is he really at 13% body? He is.
Yeah,
he led the combine in the stat you don't want to lead it.
Like I said, he is fat.
Yeah, you weren't lying.
No, but some of that's good to me. There's upside there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I can't remember if it was in relation to Jonte or not, but I heard someone say, a great thing in terms of staying in the class or going back to college. And, for a guy that is fat, for lack of a better term.
I think it's a pretty good term for him, to be honest, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. Is he better going to an NBA team and losing that fat really quickly, or is he better, having to go back to class?
Yep.
I think that's an interesting point with him.
It really depends on what they're telling him, right? If he's a second round pick, then you go back to school. If he's a first round pick, you stay. I think it's kind of that simple.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing. Is there any chance at all the Clippers manage to get the Porter brothers?
Ooh. So, interesting. They don't have any picks behind... Do they have any picks behind 12 and 13 in the first round?
I don't believe so. I think it's going to be... You somehow relying on the first Porter sliding all the way back to 12. I think I said 11 and 12 before. It's actually 12 and 13. So,
right.
It's tough. They would.
How about this? They package 12 and 13, get Porter, right?
Yep.
They trade Patrick Beverly to the Suns for number 16, and then they take Jonte there. They can do that.
I like it. I really like that. I think the first Porter, 12 and 13. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, health permitting, Porter Jr. is the kind of guy that you want to trade up for if he's sliding to, 7, 8, 9. So, yeah, that's something to watch out.
Yep, totally agree with you there. Okay, where are we at? Round number 14, your Denver Nuggets. Who are you picking?
Oh, Denver. I like to think myself is pretty up with Denver. I've got a buddy that lives and follows Denver out there in Colorado, so talk a fair bit of Nuggets and Phoenix ball with him. So I would say they need to get more athletic. I would say that they definitely need more shooting, and I would say that despite number of power forwards on their roster, they're really missing someone to essentially be that first big off the bench behind Jokic and Millsap, and small forward too. So someone that can slide between the 3 and the 4 would be perfect, because I think we mentioned shitting the bed in the first episode.
We did.
And Wilson Chandler shat the bed last year in what should have been the perfect opportunity for him to really showcase his game. So
the funny thing, that's exactly right. They need someone exactly like him, right? He isn't it.
Exactly. So what are we looking at in the draft? Again, I've struggled to keep up with guys that we've picked and haven't picked, but if I am having a quick look now for Denver, do they go someone like Jacob Evans? He's 6'6". He's pretty much your kind of perfect 3-and-D wing guy.
Yeah.
I don't know what he measured out at the combine for wingspan to try and see if he'd be able to kind of slide up.
I think that pick makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know. Have you decided on that? Is that who you're going to pick?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of fit. And, this is the position where you start to get to fit, particularly with teams like Denver who, are on that playoff bubble. I think, BPA goes, starts to go more out the window, especially because I really view a great deal of these guys all kind of in the same tier and could go, anywhere from now until the end of the first round. So
yeah, it starts to really bleed together here, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, I think, Evans makes a lot of sense. I think, his weaknesses and why he's probably still here in the draft are, things that he can and can't do offensively, so to speak. But when you're looking at Denver, he's a high level catch and shoot 3 guy. And his negatives are more around what he can't do, putting the ball on the floor and stuff, but he's just not going to be asked to do that at Denver. So
he's not.
I'm talking myself into that pick. He's Wilson Chandler's understudy for next year, let's say.
I love the pick. I think it's not going to happen because it's Colin Sexton and Kevin Knox on the board, and NBA teams are incredibly high on those guys, so I think they'll take one of them.
That's fair.
But I love it. I think that'd be a great pick for them. Should we touch on his fit with the Suns? I think for most of the reasons you already cited, it'd be good. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think a lot of the same things apply. Again, getting back to that kind of Booker conversation, there's a couple of things that he can't do that he doesn't check boxes on. But again, you really, I hate using the term unicorn all the time, but you're almost looking for kind of a unicorn in this draft to play next to Booker. I think I've found a couple maybe later in this draft, so we'll touch on that. But you could definitely do worse than Jacob Evans for the Suns.
Yep, I agree with you. Okay, let's go to 15. I have the unfortunate task of picking for the Washington Wizards, who, my God, man, I don't know if there's a team that's like more frustrating than that team.
Hey, at least they have the pick to use.
That's true.
They can sure do with nailing this pick.
Yeah, and I think so. To me, they're probably gonna view that their backcourt and wing positions are more settled because Wall, Beal, and Porter. I'd probably take a wing, but I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to see that Gortat, the writing's on the wall with Gortat. I think he's not going to be on the team. Maybe not even next year, but certainly not the year after that.
Yep.
So I think they're going to lean towards one of the bigs. I think they'll go Robert Williams, but this is my pick, and I'm not going to pick Robert Williams. I'm going to go with Mitchell Robinson.
Okay.
He's a bit of a mysterious guy because he didn't play college basketball, and the circumstances around which he didn't play college basketball are strange, to say the very least. He also went to the Combine and withdrew almost immediately, sparking some rumors that he had a promise from someone.
Yeah, which is, it's difficult.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. But the thing about him, his upside's enormous because he's a big old guy. He's a rim runner. He's kind of what we want, the ideal modern 5. If he projects, if he lives up to his projection, I think he'd be a great fit in Washington because, as we said, they don't have a big of the future. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a smart pick. Definitely, again, around this position, you're kind of looking for the highest upside that you can get.
Yep.
I'm already looking at what this means for me at 16 with Phoenix, but we'll touch on that in a minute. I don't mind a guy like Robinson at Phoenix as well, just to kind of touch on that. So
sure. Yeah, I agree. If they take Doncic, I'd say.
Yeah. Yep. Should we move to 16 while I got one eye on that?
Let's move to the Phoenix Suns.
So I'm in the really unfortunate position here that we kind of referenced before where Sexton is still there.
Oh, no. If they go 8, they would take him at 16. He won't be there at 16. But if they...
I don't think so. I think, there's probably a little bit of, our bias or whatever you want to call it that has kind of dropped Sexton to 16 here. So I'm going to, I guess, remove him from the conversation by not picking him. Because,
please do.
As we say, he probably won't be there anyway, and I definitely don't think it's the kind of guy that Phoenix will be looking for at 16 anyway.
Agree.
Particularly if they have drafted Doncic at number 1, which is kind of what we're going with here. So this is kind of with him off the board, so to speak, this is what I was talking about before in terms of here at 16, I'm really looking for a guy that either can slot into the starting lineup next to Booker if we've taken Ayton at 1. And I'm also looking for a guy that may be able to, be the first guard off the bench to slot into a lineup, maybe late in games where Doncic is slipping up to the 4, and you kind of, really run this, 6'6" to 6'8" kind of wall at people, kind of like what we're seeing Boston do. So I got a few names here, and as I alluded to before, I think it's really hard at this stage. We're still a month out from the draft when we're recording this, and there's guys that I like at 16 that could well be there at 31, and that this is the beauty of the draft, and this is where you kind of do all your homework before.
Yeah, this draft in particular, from like we said, 14 to the early second round, it's just a mismatch, man. Yeah.
So a guy we've mentioned already before, Kevin Huerter, I definitely have him there at 16, and be looking at that. His shooting's, obviously his biggest strength and good play off the ball. I'm looking at a few other options here. I'm also looking at, looking for clues with guys that Phoenix interviewed at the Combine, because I think, that's your kind of first real look into, who Phoenix might be intrigued by, so to speak. So you've got, there was 20 names that I think Scott Bordeaux was the first one to put it out there, and it's pretty much the whole top of the class, outside of Doncic and Ayton, obviously. And then you got guys like Troy Brown Jr., Bruce Brown Jr., Chris Wilkes, and then there's a guy that I really like, and I'm going to put my hand up here and say that he could be there at 31 at this stage, but I'm going to throw his name in the mix now, and that's a guy out of Creighton called Kyrie Thomas.
Okay.
And I'm going to make the pick.
I like it. 3-and-D wing. Yeah, I mean, so there's some people who are pretty low on him. I know Jackson Hoy on Twitter is low on him, and I'm not sure why. I'm going to look into it, but I think it might be a feel thing. People are worried his feel's not great.
Okay. I think, I've followed a few people with, their draft coverage, and I think Jackson maybe believes, there's obviously not a lot of upside there. He is kind of already 22 years old, I believe, so you're kind of taking a bit of a safe bet. And, that real 3-and-D kind of guy. The reason I really like him, and I'll kind of just touch on it really quickly, is because I've, alluded to it before previously in the pod, is, when I'm looking at those boxes to tick, if I'm bringing in a guy to play next to Booker, whether it's in the starting lineup or, late in games, I really like the fact that, he's 6'3" with a 6'10" wingspan. So he's, going to be able to fit into that philosophy of, maybe taking the best offensive player and then moving everyone else around him. Very physical from the stuff that I've watched. Shout out to Jacob Padilla on Twitter, guy that, covers Creighton and kind of put me onto him originally. So, when I started watching him from then, he's as good a lockdown defender, I think, that exists in this class, particularly at this kind of area of the draft.
Okay.
And when I look at him, it's like, people's, nitpicking of him or weaknesses in his game. It's like the things come up is that he's 22, not overly explosive, and, kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. But, that's kind of what I'm looking for at this pick, to be perfectly honest, which is, why I'm staying safe.
I like it. I would go a different direction, but I like it.
Okay, what would you do?
I would take DeAnthony Melton.
Okay.
Regardless of whether they have Doncic or Ayton, because I just think his fit with Booker is just ideal. He projects to be an incredible defender. I mean, that guy gets in people.
Yeah.
The shot is the big question mark. I think it looked a little bit better at the Combine. It's really going to hinge on whether he's a starter or not, is whether he can shoot three, reasonably well. But yeah, I'm really looking for fit with Booker at that spot, and I think he's the
Yeah, I
best
think
one.
we're both on the same page
Yeah,
there. Like
yeah.
we're looking at the same prospects, and Melton's definitely a guy I have in the group. Milton's another, Melton's another.
Yep.
Thomas I have at the top. And then, maybe more traditional, points in terms of SGA and then a couple of other guys after that, at both 16 and 31 if you're looking for that kind of Booker partner. But
Yeah. I think SGA is a run to the podium guy for McD, right?
yeah, I think if he's there at 16, rather than say Sexton, you're kind of hoping that, maybe Denver or the Clippers or someone, go for Sexton instead of SGA.
Yep.
And he somehow manages to fall, or at least fall, within reaching distance of McD. So I don't think he can get too far up from 16 with what he'd probably want to give up to do it. So you're probably relying on him getting to maybe 13 or 14 or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe
I agree with that.
The Clippers at 13 perhaps would be happy to come back to 16 and maybe you have to give them 31.
You
or
are
something like
spoiling the 7 second less question.
that. I have a habit of doing that. It seems.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that is just fine. But that's probably a good segue, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably best to end it there. We're looking for the same type of guy. We probably just have a little bit of a different view on who that should be.
Yep, I think that's right.
Cool.
Okay, that'll wrap up the 9 through 16 mock draft. We'll do next week. We'll do second round and draft day trades. But
Sounds good.
before we go, let's do the 7 second or less segment. This time, I'm going to be asking you the questions.
Yeah, I'm feeling the pinch. You did a pretty good job first time round, so
I don't have a problem talking fast. Okay, so let's go. Let's just start with the first one. These are all going to be trade ups from 16.
okay.
First one is what I call the mini trade up. Jerry West is calling you. Clippers are up at 13. They've picked Colin Sexton at 12. They didn't pick Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Zaire Smith, who are both on the board. They want 16, 31, and the Milwaukee pick for you to go to 13 and get yourself either Shai or Zaire. What are you doing?
Ooh. I've only got 7 seconds. I'm going no.
No, okay.
And very, very quickly, I really value that Milwaukee pick, and I value who I can get at 16, even though I really love both of those guys.
And one of them might fall. So I think that's probably reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, second. This is what I call the medium trade up. You got Kobe Altman calling.
Mm-hmm.
Cavs are up at 8. They're pretty sure LeBron's leaving. They decided. So they're decided they want more future assets. They don't love anyone at 8. They're scared. Michael Porter Jr. and Trae Young are on the board, but they're worried about Trae Young's defensive potential, and they're worried about Michael Porter Jr.'s health or and also defensive potential. So they're looking to trade 8 with those guys on the board. Do you trade 16, 31, Milwaukee, and also a top 5 protected pick next year to move up to take either Michael Porter Jr. or Trae Young?
Yes.
Okay. Which
and
one?
I say that not loving, parts of either guy's game, but if Porter's there and you have his health records, you have to take the gamble on him at 8.
Okay. I like it. All right. Finally, you ready? This is the big trade up. Chris Wallace is calling.
Yep.
They had their board as Luka, Ayton, and Bagley by far the top 3 picks. And what happened is Luka went 1, Ayton went 2, and Bagley went 3. So Memphis is looking at a couple of developmental bigs. They see Bamba, they see Jaren Jackson Jr., and they're like, we can't take one of those guys. We want to win now. But at the same time, they need future assets. They know that their window is short. Their window is closing.
Yep.
They need to get their inevitable rebuild started somehow. So they're looking to get guys who can help them now, but also future assets. And here's what they're going to propose to you. They want T.J. Warren, Jared Dudley, or Tyson Chandler, your pick. They don't really care about that part of it because, they both expire.
They can have Tyson.
Okay. T.J. Warren and Tyson. 16, a top 4 protected pick next year, the Milwaukee pick, and the 2021 Miami pick. Also, they want you to take on Parsons' contract, but you get to go up to number 4 and take either JJ or Bombo to pair with Luka.
You are not lying about this being the big trade-up option.
It's everything.
I'm on the clock for 7 seconds, which I'm assuming Chris Wallace has only given me 7 seconds to answer, so I'll be really quick. I'm going to say no, but it is extremely tempting because it's the type of deal that McDonough needs to eventually pull the trigger on and cash in some of those assets.
Oh, yeah. And could you imagine Luka and Jaren Jackson on the same team with Booker? Oh, man.
It's kind of my dream scenario, but maybe a little bit too much. I think that would be it would be a gutsy move, but it would be maybe a panic move by McD.
Yep, and I think that 2021 Miami pick is such a valuable asset.
Yeah, and as I touched on in question 2, I actually really value the Milwaukee pick because I think it has a really high chance of conveying or not conveying all the way through to that last protection, which is, I believe, unprotected in Giannis's last year.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah, I'm not moving that for just as a throw in. Let's say.
I totally agree with you because there's a chance you move that and the Miami pick someday for Mr. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Exactly.
You got to keep those options open. Cool. Well, I'm glad I got you to say yes to at least one trade.
Me too.
All right. That's it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please, if you liked what you heard, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. It would really help us out. You can follow me on Twitter at MaxMCC11. You can follow David on Twitter at The 4 Point Play. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Max.